Rachel Liz Clark is a born and raised Montana cowgirl. She owns a Western lifestyle online clothing brand called WolfCreekCowgirlCo that represents the Rocky Mountain cowgirl and her rebel spirit. She grew up hunting, fishing, riding horses, rodeoing, skiing, and went to school for agriculture. She graduated in 2020 from Montana State University with a degree in Livestock Management and proceeded to work in the ag industry for 2 years before living on the road with her husband. She now runs her Western brand full-time out of a fifth-wheel trailer and loves every minute of it. Please help me give a big Ag Chicks welcome to Rachel Clark. Hey y'all, this is Allie Spears, your host of the Ag Chicks podcast, where I cultivate connections with the women who are helping feed the world. Well, Rachel, very excited to have you on. The rural internet has struck again for the start of this episode, but I think we got it figured out and we're good to go. So I'm very excited to have you on today, and thankful that you were flexible with not only our technical difficulties to start off today, but also cows getting out last week when we tried to do this. So that is definitely a huge part of agriculture in terms of if you have cattle or livestock, never fails. They're going to get out when you need them to not get out. So thank you, and I'm excited to get to chat with you today.
I appreciate you having me. Hopefully it doesn't freeze again, but I really appreciate you having me here. And I'm just excited to chat today.
Yes, so I kind of want to start from the beginning, if you're good with that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
let's talk about where you're from. I know you're from Montana, but like where at in Montana, and what did that kind of look like growing up?
Yeah, so I was born in Bozeman, Montana, and I was raised in Helena, Montana. And I have lived there ever since. We actually temporarily live in Texas right now out of a fifth wheel for my husband's work. And so I am just a Montana girl at heart through and through. I was raised fly fishing, hunting. We rodeoed, just hiking, skiing, all of it. And so it's in my blood for sure. And we're very eager to get back. As much as we love Texas, we're very eager to get back. But yeah, and so I was inundated in agriculture from the beginning, especially getting into rodeo. We did 4-H as well. And so that's just a huge part of my upbringing and who I am today. And so I have such an appreciation for ag, especially in Montana. And my brand is all about the Montana cowgirl because I truly believe that we're unique and we're tough cookies for sure. And so yeah, I love Montana so much, and that's why I actually graduated in agriculture in animal science livestock management at Montana State University, and I have a huge passion for it.
And so when like growing up in Montana, doing all the things that you just mentioned, having a passion for agriculture, when you were younger, was there like a dream job or dream career that you thought you wanted, or that you were like gonna hopefully like pursue after you got your degree?
Yeah, so from the very beginning, you meet some specific kids that are just so obsessed with one thing. Like for my brother, it was trains and dinosaurs. For me, it was animals. From the very beginning, it was animals, and I idolized Steve Irwin. I just loved conservation in general and ecology in general. And so growing up in Montana, I was already exposed to that from a very young age, just the ecology of Montana and how that ecosystem works, and then how that ecosystem also works with ranchers as well. And so I just knew that I was going to do something with animals. I'm also a multifaceted person, so I have that creative side as well. So that is conflicting because I was like, well, yes, I love science, but I also want to do 100,000 other things, hence why I now own a women's Western clothing brand. But Yeah, I got into it knowing that I wanted to do something with animals, and I originally wanted to be a medical rep, basically, a drug rep for animals, and I wanted to work with ranchers and veterinarians. So that was the plan, and it changed.
As most plans do, right?
Yes, yes.
And so when you said you went to Montana State and you studied livestock management. So what is that similar to like an animal science degree, or what did that specifically entail in terms of like coursework and specialization?
Yep, yeah, so that is underneath that animal science
Okay.
degree. That is basically I took a lot of business classes, which now looking at it, it it really helped me in my job that I have now. But yes, more heavy on business, more heavy on I didn't take a lot of the animal science like pre-vet classes, any of that, but I still had to take anatomy and physiology and yeah, so more heavier on the management side, the business and entrepreneurship side.
Okay, super cool. Yeah, no, I have a similar experience in terms of, I guess, so I was ag business for my degree. But things I was doing in college that I never thought I would really apply. And now I'm like, oh, I maybe should have paid a little bit more attention on that business class because I'm needing it a lot more, or accounting. Probably should have paid a little more attention in accounting. But
Yes.
it fascinates me how people's degrees, if they're not doing something specifically that like their degree fed right into for a career, like what aspects they've pulled from it or what things they learned that they're now applying in ways that they kind of thought they might not apply. Um, but yeah, no,
Yes.
that's super interesting and different. I haven't heard of the like management, livestock management being a specific kind of degree or route through animal science, but I think very important, especially kind of going back to the ecology side and land management side of things. Those are all definitely things that we need to know from a livestock standpoint.
Yes, absolutely. And I really praise Montana State University for their ag program for that. There's just so many avenues underneath animal science that you can take. It's not just animal science. It's you could be working in a lab. You could be, yeah, livestock management is more tailored to people who want to run their own operations, or just it's very general. That's more of the general side of it. So yeah, that was my best option. I wasn't going to work in a lab. I was going to work out in the field and be more hands-on. So I think it's a great school for that, for sure.
Yeah, and it's beautiful, right? I mean, absolutely incredible views. Montana is gorgeous. We were just there in November, I guess it was. And I had actually applied to Montana State, and I didn't ever end up like visiting or anything like that, but it came to Texas. So we have that connection obviously. But then we just were there in November for a cattle sale, and we flew into Bozeman, and oh my gosh, just absolutely incredible in terms of how beautiful it is there.
Yes. Yes. A lot of kids go to that school specifically for the skiing around that area. And I'm a ski bum myself. And so I made friends. It's kind of like ski joring in a way where I was like, a lot of the times I felt like that gap between like my cowboy friends and my ski friends. And so it's definitely a ski joring school. That's all I can really describe it as, where there's the ski kids that come there and then there's the ag kids, but there's also a big engineering program and so on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, it's a seems like a great place to be. Cute little college town, obviously incredible place for outdoor activities, and then a great place for agriculture as well. But when you graduated and kind of got into the real world, I guess you could say, right? What is that when you started your business, or was there kind of a period in between where you were doing something else?
Yeah, so in college, I worked a couple of jobs at a time. One of them, I was a manager for an equine boarding facility in Bozeman, and then I also worked at it was a Western store on the top floor, but you go down into the basement of that store, and it's all vintage Western. And I've always been passionate for fashion. I have always had that passion all throughout when I was little until now, obviously. But I really learned a lot about vintage Western, and I learned what to look for that was vintage. A lot of people say something's vintage, but it's not, what is vintage and what's retro. And so I really learned a lot there, and that was just so fun. And so when I graduated, I got a job at American Simmental Association in Bozeman. And I also had that creative side of me that was like, you know what, I want to sell vintage Western. Just start a little shop on Instagram and just for fun do that. And I'm a huge thrifter, so I continued to do that in Bozeman, and it started to grow and grow from there. And it was really cool because once I was working those two jobs at the same time. So I was working at American Simmental and then also kind of like packaging my package on the side. I met my husband and then we got married. And when we started living on the road, yes, I was working remotely for American Simmental, but it was the other business, the clothing business, started to grow from there. And I was faced with the decision of, do I put my all into this clothing business and just risk it all, hope for the best, and watch it grow, or do I continue to work both jobs? So that's kind of how that started, and it was just a huge blessing.
Yeah, and ultimately, right, you made that decision to kind of go all in. But you do things in a very unique way, I think. Well, first of all, love vintage, love retro, love kind of everything you do. Your stuff is so cute. But you also you kind of create, like, recreate the pieces too a little bit, right? So where did that come from? What kind of inspired that aspect of your business?
Yeah, so it all starts with my dad, I feel like. So he taught me how to sew. He loves to he usually does repairs with his sewing, but he sews his wall tents together for bow season in Montana. And so he taught me on his mom's sewing machine, and I just fell in love with sewing. And then that turned into the embroidery machine. And I very much, because I learned so much about that vintage Western and clothing in general and what is quality, I now have to sell quality because I'm obsessed with it, and I just feel like everybody should have quality clothing that will last them a really long time. And so that was embroidery for me. I didn't want something that was going to rub off. I wanted something that was going to be there for forever, no matter how hard you try to get it off. And so that sewing passion turned into the embroidery passion. And I just wasn't seeing any embroidery in the Western fashion world, I guess. I think there may be one or two other gals doing it, but it's deemed as kind of old fashioned. I'm like, well, let's bring this back because I really like it. And so yep, I have the embroidery machine, and that's that's basically where all of the products come from. Even the our hat patches are embroidered as well.
And so next question would be, how do you manage the business, do everything, right? Because you're still a one woman show, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
do all of that on the road out of your fifth wheel?
To be honest, it's like a week by week thing. Like it's like I take it day by day. Um, because I'm the photographer. I'm also the back end of my business. I'm also the web designer. Our website is just kind of like piece together right now. I would love to put more work into it, but I'm like, it works, it's fine, it's functional. And it shows our branding. So, and then I have my husband doing more of the accounting side, so he's taking care of that a little bit. But yeah, to be honest, if I'm really, really honest, I get burnt out quite a bit. And so it took me a long time to learn how to rest, and that rest is productive. I think when you are a one woman show, and of course on social media, I'm showing the highlights, but really behind one photo, it's like, shoot, I need to take a photo today. I'm just going to like throw something together really quick. And I'm so grateful for that community of women because they hype me up so much and I love them so much. I could cry, but they make it, they keep me going for sure. It's more of the community than the clothes, really. I love clothes, but it's the community of women there that motivate me. I really try to work on I'm not a naturally disciplined person, so I really have to work on being disciplined. But yeah, really, systems is key when you work for yourself, and when you have a growing business. I'd say systems and discipline, and it's a constant uphill battle.
Yes, I 1,000% agree. And I think right now, currently probably in the burnout phase of a lot of things in my life in terms of just everything that is going on, and being a one woman show in most capacities of the things that I'm doing. We were kind of chatting before. My mom and I have a business that we do together, but sometimes even that it's a two woman show, I guess, but there's so many things in that business as well. But I think that's a really important point about having like the strong community behind you. And I think that there's also a point there that, not that other industries don't have communities, because they definitely do, but I think that there's such a strong community within agriculture, within the Western fashion industry. And I think I don't know, it really is something to lean on, I think, when you are burnt out, or you are like, oh, dang it, I got to take a picture today because, I did this and I'm trying to promote it, or whatever the situation is. I think, and you kind of said it in the beginning too, I think you said like Montana cowgirls are just they're you didn't say built different, but they are, like, there's just like a atmosphere around people in Western and agriculture. They're just built different and they just connect differently. And I think that's just such an important thing that sometimes maybe we don't talk about all that often.
Yeah, and I always felt a little out of place in the Western fashion industry just because I didn't resonate with a lot of, not saying that that there's anything wrong with the clothing. It just didn't resonate with me, and I really wanted to represent I guess you could call it the alternative cowgirl. I don't know any other term, but I see that coming up more and more as like the alternative cowgirl. Well, what does that mean? Well, it could be like the cowgirls that are don't look like they're cowgirls, the outdoorsy cowgirls that I see in Montana all the time that also ski just as much as they ride. And so I think, and then also the edgier cowgirl. So I really wanted to bring all of those aspects of me together in one place. And it always is a little scary, especially in the creative space, because I have nobody else to bounce ideas off of. So I'm like, is this going to resonate with anybody else? Yes, I feel this way. And I want to make products that I would wear. But do other people think that as well? And that was huge. I rebranded my business a year ago, last January. And that was like, okay, I've been selling products for a while that don't really resonate with me anymore. And so how am I just gonna dive all in with like the Montana cowgirl? And yeah, but it really, really worked out, and I'm so grateful for that. And I just want to be able to serve really any cowgirl, but yeah, the cowgirls that feel like they're a little bit different and don't resonate with a lot of the clothing and sold in the Western fashion industry.
By ranchers for ranchers. Together, let's make ranching easier. Previously known as Cattle Back Box, Strayhorn has rebranded to better match their ability to push the envelope in creating innovative animal management products to serve the ranching community. Strayhorn is rooted in tradition and ranching legacy, but they believe in the opportunity of looking at things with a new perspective to drive the industry forward. Check out all of the things that Strayhorn has to offer you and your herd.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I think it kind of goes back to your first kind of comment about you being a multifaceted individual, right? And I think more people than we probably realize, well, not more people, everyone is multifaceted. We all have different layers to us. We all have different likes, dislikes, lots of dislikes, all of the different things that make us who we are. No two people are alike. And I think that sometimes internally and also externally, we think like, okay, if you're in agriculture or you're Western, like you have to look a certain way, you have to talk a certain way, your hair has to be a certain way, you have to wear certain things, and like, who freaking cares? You know what I mean? Like, if you are
Yeah.
wearing things that make you confident and happy, like, who cares what? And just because you wear one thing one day and the next thing the next, like, that doesn't make you not Western or not country or cowgirl or whatever you want to be. So I think that's really important, and that's awesome that your brand has allowed you to lean into that from a personal standpoint, but then also others to celebrate that about themselves as well.
Yes. Yeah. Preach. I definitely could talk about that all day long. I think that for the longest time I was putting myself in a box, and I was like, something's wrong here. I'm putting myself in a box, and I think a lot of us do that. But really, yeah, when you think about human beings, we're all over the place with our passion and interests, and I don't have to fit into this mold. We can all just do and just let myself like what I like and just wear whatever I want to wear.
Yes, exactly. And I don't know. The world seems to be a better place when people really truly lean into who they are. And I think too, social media, right? It's such a, I don't know, there's such a pressure to make everything so Instagram worthy, and the perfect outfit, the perfect look, and everything. And that's something that I've struggled with too, in terms of like trying to have a business and just present a brand online and stuff like that. So I think the more we see that, the more people will feel comfortable doing that themselves.
Right. No, I so agree with that. Like I am guilty of that too, where since I work from home, you probably resonate with this, but like I put makeup on maybe once a month today, and I'll take content today because I'm like, I got dressed up, I curled my hair, but I see a lot of more just real life on social media now, and also people taking social media breaks, which is like, I don't know if that you could say quote unquote trending, but it is really refreshing to see that, and just more photo dumps of people's real life. And so I agree with you there for sure. I think that we should just show up as we are, not try to curate ourselves for other people, especially within the Western fashion industry, because there is that fear of being an imposter. The term buckle bunny that gets thrown around a lot. I think we've all been called a buckle bunny at least once. I'm like, let's just stop that. Let's just let people be multifaceted and not throw them in a box. But yeah.
Yes, no, I so agree with that. And I think the needle or the moving point, right, is women who are passionate about these different things in the industry, and being able to talk about that. So I thank you for doing what you're doing, because I do think that it's important. Sometimes we think about our self or what we're doing as so like small minded, but I really think that in a lot of ways there are bigger pictures happening that maybe we're not even aware of. So I commend you on doing that, because it's not easy to kind of break that mold and go outside of it. But that being said, too, I would love to know your process in terms of like, how do you approach like putting a collection together or putting a piece together? Like, how do you approach that? That seems like so big to me in terms of like, where do you even begin?
Yeah, so I actually get a lot of my inspiration from outside of the Western fashion industry. I think that's really important because we're such a small niche and there's a lot of designs being ripped off. I've noticed I think it's really important to take inspiration outside of your own industry, and also take inspiration from yourself. People want to see what you like, and it's going to be 110% authentic if it comes from you and you look at it and you say, yes, I would wear this every single day. And I take a lot of Pinterest inspiration, a lot of inspiration like from my upbringing, and then I just piece that together into a design, and I work on it for a while in my embroidery software. And what I do, I usually do, because I have just one embroidery machine right now. We're actually working on getting a second one and hopefully getting into printing t-shirts. That's something that I want to do this year. But right now, since we just have the one embroidery machine, we try to do restocks every couple of weeks and then a new item every once in a while. So we don't have large collections going out at one time just because we can't. I say we, it's me.
Right.
I can't like it's a giant team. It's just me and my dog, but I can't really keep up with um the restocks, which is such a blessing. I am definitely not complaining about that whatsoever, but I try to keep up with that every 2 weeks, restock something, a popular item. Right now it's that Play That Sad Cowboy Music hoodie, and then we are coming out with a t-shirt this Friday. So it really just depends. I don't have a system for the creative process, to be honest. I think it's really fun to kind of let myself be in that, and then everything else has a system. So if I have an idea, I have a huge list in my notes app on my phone, and I'll have a random idea while I'm in the grocery store, and I'll just like type it in really fast. Or if I see something on Pinterest that really inspires me, I'll dream it up, and then it just comes to be.
That's so cool. And I think the fact that you have the creative freedom, right, to do that is so cool, because I think a lot of times in our lives of, I don't know, just craziness and everything going on in the world, that aspect of creativity is lost. So the fact that you're able to really lean into that and have a very successful, prospering business off of it, I think is very, very rewarding and encouraging to others who might be struggling with their creative blocks or whatever the case may be. So that's incredible. And then in terms of when you started, like, did this all start from like you purely like thrifting and then like sharing that and building off of that, or like through social media, or was there more of a like, and people reacted to it and that's kind of how it grew, or what was the kind of launching pad, I guess, is my question.
Oh man, how much time do you have? I have gone through so many products, and I don't call them failures. I truly don't believe in failure because I think it's inevitable that we're gonna fall on our face and you just have to get back up. But I started by selling that vintage Western, and then also really anything vintage I could find. We started out with the name Wild Blonde Thrift. Um, 3 years ago now, and then it slowly turned into I once I started learning more on the sewing machine, I was reconstructing damaged stuff that I would find at Goodwill. And one of them that got really, really popular was the cropped pearl snap. And I just found that a lot of men's pearl snaps, they were so beautiful, but they were so damaged at the bottom from belt buckles, from being tucked in. So I started cropping them and turning them into women's jackets, and those took off like crazy. And then I was making scrunchies from the excess fabric, and I was just doing that. I was really just selling 2 products at a time, but I knew that I wanted to do more with the business than just that. And I knew that other businesses were doing well. And I just had a feeling that, and I loved those products, but I had a feeling that I wanted to do more and I wanted to make a brand out of it, not just a business. And so I invested in the embroidery machine a year ago, and yeah, my products have just expanded from there, and I can be more creative with them. I wanted to work with designs, so that was my main goal there. But yeah, from the beginning, I was really on Instagram, and I sold things through Instagram, and then had a website. Actually, I started on Etsy in the very beginning, and then had a website, and then rebranded that website. But mainly Instagram. And then yeah, I just consistently posted, jumped on trends. I think it's really important to be cringy for a while. I have since deleted those videos. But yeah, I was not going to keep those, but it is really important to learn how to be cringy and not care what other people think, and really learn social media. I feel like a lot of people say they're an old soul, but I really have to have strict boundaries with social media. But I think if you're gonna go 100% with your brand, you need to learn how to use social media to your advantage, especially Instagram. And so that's where my main marketing is on Instagram.
Right. And I think kind of going back to what you were just talking about, that's how I initially found you, I think, was the cropped mince pearl snaps. And I just remember
Really?
seeing them and thinking like, wow, like I never would have thought of that, but like how freaking cute are those? Like that genius, like total, like you know what I mean? Like absolutely genius. Um and then but along those lines, I guess one of my questions would be, you kind of talked about in the beginning too, like you learned a lot about vintage Western wear and like picking things and stuff like that. What would be your biggest tip to somebody who's listening in terms of if they were like gonna go to the thrift shop and like pick something out? What would be your like the one thing that they need to know?
Oh my gosh. One thing, there's so many things. I'd say the biggest one is give yourself a lot of time. Don't give yourself like a quick trip to the thrift store, and because you'll need to look through every single item. I've found some of the coolest things that are like wedged back in there where you would never see it from the outside if you're just skimming. I truly think that skimming doesn't really work. And yeah, get a coffee beforehand and make a huge day out of it, and you'll find some really cool stuff. So that would be my biggest advice for sure.
And then second question along those lines, and maybe this is not a great question, but have you found that there's a certain brand that just like lasts better or holds up better in terms of like its longevity?
Yeah, I mean, so with vintage, it's hard because a lot of those brands are discontinued.
Right.
For instance, I'm going to Arizona tomorrow for a bachelorette party for my friend, and I was thrifting for a sparkly black dress, and I found one, and the brand is long gone. And that is one of the ways that you can tell that something's vintage if it was discontinued a long time ago, obviously. So but you can tell by reading the tags. With vintage tags, there's so much more information on it. So for this dress specifically, it said made in the USA, 100% cotton, and it goes on and on about the care of the fabric, dry clean only. And that's when you know, you're like, okay, this is a good piece of clothing. When you see the polyester count getting higher and higher, you can just feel that by grabbing the clothing. You can just feel that, yes, this feels like plastic. And so I think it's learning how to read labels and touch the fabric. But as far as specific brands, I mean, Wrangler has just been around for so long. Obviously, Rocky Mountain jeans have been around for so long. It's that thick jean material that is just invaluable. I'm wearing my favorite pair of jeans. I'm wearing vintage Cruel Girls right now, some riding jeans, because they're long enough and they're not as tight in the waist. And it's yeah, so I'd say that's my favorite brand that I'm wearing right now. But there's so many others. It's just old vintage pieces that you'll have for the rest of your life that you really need to look for.
Yeah, I think those are fantastic tips. And then too, as you have kind of moved with your husband's job and everything, have you been to a place where you're like, dang, the thrift stores here just like they're not cutting it for me? Or have you really been able to kind of like find somewhere that like, okay, I found a new place? Is that like the first thing you look for when you guys move somewhere?
Yes. So my ideal day, I am such an introvert. My ideal day, if I'm going to take a day off, is like get a coffee, read my book, and then go to the thrift stores. And we are in a small town right now. So we have one actually pretty good thrift store right down the road from me. The Goodwills aren't super great. So it really is just hit or miss. I think that um I'm trying to think of any places that we've gone. When we were in Amarillo, those were some good thrift stores, I'd say. Those were better. Now that we're in a smaller town, it's not as good, but Amarillo was pretty good. I think it really does take just looking through every single item, to be honest. And but inevitably, some thrift stores are going to be a bust.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's comes with the territory, right? But then you never know. The next couple days, if somebody takes something or they find something, you never know. So you never give up, I guess, right? You can always recycle through them.
Yes, I know. I always go through the thrift store and then I see like the cool girl with her cart and she grabs something that I want so bad. She beat me to it. She's the girl with the claw clip, you know, and I'm like, oh, dang it. Need
Yeah,
that.
she beat me, dang it.
Yeah.
Well, Rachel, I really, again, I appreciate you taking time to chat with me. I think your business is so unique and kind of what you're doing is just, I don't know, there's just so many things I think that are important, not only from the standpoint of celebrating yourself and finding clothing that makes you feel comfortable and confident, but just kind of your whole approach to celebrating women and celebrating women in agriculture and the Western industry and stuff like that. So I do appreciate you taking time to chat with me. My final question though would be if you had any advice to give to someone who is maybe looking to get into the Western space or maybe starting their own business, what would kind of be your words of advice to them?
Yeah, I would say there's so much I could write a book about this,
I
but
know, right?
uh, yeah. I would say, like I said before, don't put yourself in a box and take inspiration from you. And also don't get discouraged in the very beginning. I mean, with business, it takes about a year or two. It took me 2 years to finally see the fruits of my labor. And so you'd really, if you're really passionate about it, stick with it. And even if your ideas seem a little crazy, but you love them, stick with them and be your biggest advocate. That's what I would say.
I think that is fantastic advice. Yeah, I mean, I think that you pretty much hit the nail on the head there. And I think learning to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations is probably a really important one as well, kind of along the same lines of getting out of your comfort box and being your own advocate. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And thank you so much, Rachel, again, for spending some time with me. If someone is wanting to connect with you, shop for your business, what is the best way for them to connect with you or find you?
Yeah, so I am chronically on Instagram. I say I have boundaries, but I'm getting better. But I am pretty active on Instagram, so you can find my business at WolfCreekCowgirlCo. And then my personal Instagram, I like to share a lot of just personal style. That's just more where I can be creative in my personal life. That is at Rachey Liz, and that's RACHEYLIZ.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to see everything continue to grow for you and to see you grow in your business, and all the exciting things that you have going on. And until next time, Rachel, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you, Allie, for having me. I am so honored.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Ag Chicks. Don't forget to follow along on social media at Ag Chicks for more agricultural related content, and also be sure to check out your favorite podcast gear from www.agchicks.net. We'll see you next time.